Time has come again to talk about slavery in the Bible. I've chosen a bright spring background because although the subject is somewhat heavy, love, joy, and peace is at the end of the tunnel. For those with a short attention span, here's the bottom line. If you're so triggered by the very word slavery that you can't even consider giving yourself to the one who loves you more than we are capable of understanding, our collective enemy will pump his arm in gleeful, yes. Don't give that to him. I'm not going to even try to apologize for God. If we think we're more moral than him, there's something missing in our understanding. If we think we're smarter than him, we don't even know ourselves. If you want to discuss details of Israel's treatment of those they conquered in Canaan, check all the parts of this post. First, we need to understand a few things about God. God is all about the one. There's the parable of the lost sheep. I know this may sound irrelevant and heretical, but I believe this is true. God doesn't care whether the Packers win or lose, only as it affects any players or fans' relationship to him. And don't try the, if the Vikings win, I'll give 1,000 to the church ploy. God doesn't play that game. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We live in a fallen, sinful world with sickness, cancer, violence, even occasional Vikings wins. God doesn't always remove or protect us from the sin around us, but he does take this journey with us. Psalms 23:4. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. He doesn't remove us from the shadow of death in this sinful world. He takes the journey with us. And while investing in each one of us, God does have a master plan for all humanity, which spans thousands of years. We're looking at next week while God's working years, maybe thousands of years ahead. Talk about the butterfly effect. God is the butterfly effect. God promised to bring Abraham's family back to the land of Canaan, and God kept his promise more than 400 years later. And by the way, he used slavery as a tool, both in bringing Joseph to Egypt and taking the new nation, Israel, out of Egypt. Yeah, just look at Joseph. He was sold as a slave at God's direction, and with Joseph's honesty and submissive diligence, God created a nation. Joseph was sold into slavery to Potiphar. What if Joseph had said to Potiphar, I'm a Hebrew, not an Egyptian. You can't own me. I don't have to work for you. Study the account of Joseph. God used Joseph within slavery to protect and create a nation of like a couple million people. The focus on slavery, fascism, DEI, privilege, and the inherent divisiveness and hatred, that focus robs us right now of that love, joy, peace offered by Jesus. That divisive attitude has its roots in envy, jealousy, and covetousness, and those are what God clearly opposes. God did not create or demand slavery. Slavery isn't the point with him any more than skin color. How we personally relate to him and to others is the point. Full stop. What he wants from us is us. Whoever we are, wherever we are, whenever we are. He gives us love, joy, and peace. And that has absolutely nothing to do with ethnicity, wealth or poverty, health, occupation, gender, marital status, family history, or anything else we could think of out there. All of that is a smokescreen to rob us. Love, joy, and peace is 100% in here. If you don't believe that, read Fox's Book of Martyrs. The detail I'll address about slavery is that slave trade was forbidden, both in the Old and New Testaments, because kidnapping was forbidden. Deuteronomy 24:7 and 1 Timothy 1:9 and 10. So right there, we separate slavery in the Bible from the Atlantic slave trade. Please make that distinction, and that distinction is meaningful. Don't blow it off. Moving to the New Testament in Ephesians 6, verse 5, Paul says, "Slaves, be obedient to those who are your masters according to the flesh, with fear and trembling, in the sincerity of your heart, as to Christ." In other words, whatever your job is, work diligently and honestly. But the passage follows with verse 9. "And masters, do the same things to them," that is your slaves, "and give up threatening," like don't even threaten them, "knowing that both their master and yours is in heaven, and there is no partiality with him." Make a note of that, and don't forget it. Ephesians 6:9. Here is God's definitive description of the master-slave relationship. He's saying, slave-master may be your relationship, but you're all the same to me. I believe that God did not remove slavery for two reasons. First, he basically says, your status on earth isn't the point. Your relationship to me is the point. I won't read them, but for reference, check out what Paul says in Philippians 3:7 and 8, and Philippians 4:11, as for our attitude on earth. The second thing about slavery, and this is just me, there are pastors who are heavily into typology. And this Old Testament is a type of what we see in the New Testament. Yeah, I'm not heavily into that, but it's not all bogus either. We refer to God as Father, for instance, and the relationship of a good father helps us understand our relationship to God. And I believe slavery is an object lesson of what God wants from us. He wants us totally, mind and body. He wants us to give ourselves to him in willing slavery. He can point to a slave and say, see that? That's what I want from you. The process started when he sacrificed himself for us. Romans 5:8, God showed his love to us in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. So a way to him was made possible. Then it's up to us to trust him with our lives. Yeah, as his slaves. Don't let a word you don't like, don't let a word trigger you. Don't let jealousy and envy trigger you so that you are unable to accept the love, joy, and peace of Jesus.